Hello everyone, my name's Dave, and this is the 6th video for a relaxing minimalist alien farm game I'm creating with my own engine using C++ and SDL2. In this video, I'm going to continue working on the animals. Previously, I set up code that allows the animals to move around. The system works quite well, however, they can still overlap other animals, plants, and the water as well. In order to fix this, some kind of overlap checks need to be performed. Let's start by looking at the simplest case, overlap with the water. It's the simplest case because, unlike the animals, it doesn't move. Let's say an animal picks a point to move to. How do we know if it will overlap the water or not? Well, the animal can be represented by a circle and the water tiles by squares, given that they are on a square grid. Check if the circle, centered at the desired move point, overlaps any of the water tile's squares. If so, then the move shouldn't be allowed. Imagine a slightly different situation where the animal is currently on a tile that isn't water, wants to move to a tile that isn't water, but will have to cross over water. In this case, the previous overlap check won't detect the overlap, because it's only checking overlap at the desired move point. Therefore, overlap must be checked along the line segment from the start point to the desired move point. This could either be done before the move starts, or while moving it could continuously check for overlap and just stop right before it overlaps the water. Personally, I like the second method for simplicity, and we'll do it that way. Now let's imagine the most complicating case, checking overlap with other moving animals. As a few examples of problems that could happen, 2 or more animals can attempt to move to the same spot, or they could cross paths and potentially overlap briefly when doing so. While none of these situations are desirable, they're quite complicating to deal with in a way that ensures that no overlap ever occurs, ever. If instead overlap is allowed briefly, the problem becomes much simpler to solve. For example, if the animals rarely move and only move for a short period of time, they are almost static like the water. This means that the chance of overlap becomes low. In practice, I found that these are very good assumptions and end up working quite well. Therefore, the code that checks overlap with the animals can be kept quite simple and very close to the code that checks overlap with the water. I'll also just mention that the plants are just like the animals, but never move. Therefore, the same code will work for them. The code is still a work in progress, but I'll show you how it works. One main addition is a function called checkIfPoseMovable. It checks if the position that an animal wants to move to will overlap anything or not. It checks overlap with tiles on the level, as well as the animals and plants. Note that I added an if statement that checks an input variable called checkOverlap with plants and animals. The idea is that rather than check overlap with all the animals and plants every frame when the animal is moving, it will only check when initially picking a position to move to. Ultimately, this is one possible implementation of the assumptions that I discussed, and I may make changes in the future. For the level, I created a function called checkCircleOverlap. It starts by determining a rectangle that covers the tiles that overlap the input circle. Then it loops through each tile and checks if it can block movement. It then checks if overlap occurs. If so, returns true. Otherwise, it keeps checking. If after checking all the tiles, no overlap has occurred, then return false. I think this is a good place to stop for now. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.